couple of months ago, I did a video called The Gen X Retirement Crisis. It's a real thing, and it's different from anything that's come before. Check out that video if you have a second. But here, I want to talk to those folks who have already suffered from the Gen X retirement crisis and have the wrong idea about what to do next. Hi, I'm Stuart. I am your middle-aged hack, just a child of the 80s trying to make his way through the 20s, and I hope you'll take the journey with me. Tell me if this sounds like you. You're somewhere in your 50s, and you found that all of a sudden you got laid off for whatever reason. Maybe it's because you have a millennial boss who really never understood you in the first place. Or maybe it's because you're in a shrinking industry and just things aren't going that well. But you find yourself without a job for the first time in a long time. You've been smart. As a member of Gen X, you had a little more opportunity that millennials and Gen Z do not, unfortunately. So you were able to pay off your student loans. You were able to buy a house. And maybe that house is even close to paid off. You're doing pretty well for yourself. Your 401k is healthy, your investments look good, and you're thinking to yourself, why do I want this nonsense of work? I'm in my mid-50s, and I can afford to retire. I don't honestly believe that Google is always listening to us, but it's funny, as soon as you say that out loud, you will start getting ads for how to retire at the age of 55 with $800,000 or whatever it is that you have. The sheer amount of material that's out there to try to help you retire in your 50s is bewildering. And what I want you to do is ignore all of it. If you are lucky enough to have a good nest egg in your mid-50s, to have your expenses under control, try to keep it that way. I know that it's really tempting to retire. I myself have been in the full-time workforce for 41 years, which is a very, very long time. And I have quite a few more years to go before I can retire and get Social Security and Medicare. So yeah, it's tempting. I get it. It's even more tempting when you look at the kind of jobs that are open to you as a person in your 50s. I'm going to lay it on, as plain as I can. You may never get another high-paying job in your life. You may find something in the $50,000 to $60,000 range, which in some parts of the country is barely above what you would make from fast food, and you're just going to kind of have to be happy with that because you just may not get anything else ever, because that's what the Gen X retirement crisis is all about. It's all about the fact that younger generations place absolutely no value in Gen X. They think of us as baby boomers. They think of us as part of that group that still don't know how to use their phone, when in fact we were the ones who pioneered all of that technology that everybody takes for granted today. If you think that you're going to retire, chances are you're going to be disappointed. I'm going to share two stories with you, and I have changed a lot of the details to protect the identity and personality of the people that I'm talking about. Matter of fact, if you are one of my friends and you hear me talk about this story and you think it's about you, it probably isn't, because I've changed that much. Here's this first person. I'll call him Jim, I guess. Well, Jim did really great work when he was in his 30s. He designed products in the first days of the internet boom that really, really made him very comfortable. Absolutely. And he was able to cash out by the time he turned 35. And even he had all these calculations that told him that he'd be able to make another 50 years on the money that he had banked, even if inflation was out of control. Well, that sounded great. And then members of his family had medical issues. He himself had medical issues. He had to move. He found himself needing to give large sums of money for housing that he never intended because the house that he had didn't sell for as much as he expected. And by the time he hit his late 50s, he hadn't been working for about 25 years, and he found himself doing the lowest of the low, telemarketing stuff, low-end clerical stuff, just to make ends meet. And Jim's a trooper. He's the kind of guy who takes pride in his work. You can take that away from this story, that you should always be proud of what you do, no matter how little you get paid. Being proud of your work is its own reward, as Jim found out. He's not having the retirement that he expected, and it was very hard for him to get into the workforce after 25 years away. Now, here's another story about a guy I'll call him Dwight because I called the other guy Jim. Well, Dwight was career military. He did 25 years in the U.S. Army, which, thank him for his service, folks. Thank him for his service. And he got out. He had, obviously, a military pension, free health care for the rest of his life. He went directly into the private sector. He got a decent job where he worked about 15 more years. And by the time he was about 48, he said, "I'm done. I've had it. I have my military pension. I've been able to put away a lot of money, and I'm just going to coast for the rest of my life." What Dwight didn't think about was that housing costs where he was, up in Northern California, grew so totally out of control in the following years that he wasn't able to keep up. And he drained his savings faster than he ever thought possible. And by the time that Dwight was in his late 60s, well, he didn't have money at all. He was lucky enough to find housing in Alabama in a veterans apartment complex that would just take his pension and give him a little bit of extra spending money, and that was it, call it a day. He had that, he had a little bit of Social Security, he had Medicare and, the health care that came from the military, so he was covered there. But he ended up picking up and moving, leaving almost all of his stuff behind, selling the few possessions that he had, and going all the way across the country into a very, very beat up old veterans facility where they did not take care of him at all. He did the best he could to make the most of what he had, but he started having health problems, partially due to moving into a humid climate after being in the Bay Area for, 30 years. And he just couldn't take it. It was only a couple of years before Dwight got very sick, before he was not able to take care of himself, and he passed away in his early 70s, way too young. And why? Because he ran out of money, because he could not take care of himself. And that's the real moral of the story here. Those are two pretty scary stories if you're thinking of retiring in the mid-50s, and honestly, they're not the only things that could come up. What if your kids are about to default on their student loans and you co-signed for them because you're a good parent? You're going to need to put that retirement money into salvaging those student loans, or else you'll go down with the ship. What if there's something catastrophic that happens to you medically and you're not old enough for Medicare, and maybe there is some sort of healthcare system in your state, but you probably have too much money to really qualify for it? I mean, that's kind of horrible. There are no shortage of scenarios where just thinking that you have enough money for the rest of your life and thinking you don't have to worry about Social Security and Medicare is going to backfire on you. So what can you do? Be like my friend Jim. Find a job you can be proud of. If it only pays $50,000 or even less, that's $50,000 less that you have to take out of retirement early. If there's some sort of benefit to it, take that benefit. And if you're not 59 and a half yet, do everything you can, sell everything you can to keep funding your IRA so that you'll have an easier time of it later. It's no fun to think about starting over in your mid-50s, and it's even harder when you feel like you have enough money so you don't have to do it. But trust me, folks, it may be hard, but it's going to be rewarding. You'll struggle for a little while. You'll probably find jobs that you hate, and they won't pay that much, so you'll leave them anyway. And that's fine if you find something else. But stay employed, stay busy, and you'll make it until 65 when you can get Medicare, 67 when you can get Social Security, and at that point, you'll be able to have the retirement that you truly deserve. I know, it's 12 more years in the workforce, and you've already been working so many years. It doesn't sound like fun, but do it. Do it for yourself. Do it because your future self will thank you. And that is its own reward. That's it for the Middle-Aged Hack for today. Do me a favor, like, subscribe, leave a comment, share this video, because I am trying to build it up. I cannot do that without you. And happy job hunting. If you are in this position, it's going to get better. It really is. It's just going to take time.